We just got a big Quest 3 update that comes with some crazy features, as well as news about the upcoming Meta Quest 4 and Steam Frame VR headset. And on top of that, we also got some insane VR game news that you don't want to miss. So let's dive right into it. Now, the biggest new change that came with this update is that Meta has now finally unlocked and released the full functionality of the Hyperscape Capture app. And to quickly recap, if you somehow have missed this, is that Mark Zuckerberg was showing off these features during the Meta Connect event, in which they showcased that users could visit near photorealistic scans of real-life environments from within their own headset. And this also got quickly followed up by the Horizon Hyperscape demo application that you could find on your Quest homepage, and in which you could try it out and visit 6 of these real-life locations yourself. But now, thanks to the big new update, not only can you scan and visit your own environments, you can also start to invite friends to join you or visit other people's their places instead. And that can be an absolute game changer. But getting back to the scanning of your surroundings, once your world has been finished with processing, you will then see an invite and share button, which will in return generate a URL that you can send to your friends. And the cool thing is that people can then now join you in your Hyperscape world with either their Quest 3 or Quest 3S. And as an example, you could literally visit Gordon Ramsay's home kitchen, or in the next second, step foot in the UFC octagon itself. But a couple smaller details that are important to know is that these Hyperscape worlds currently only support up to 8 people per instance, even though Meta did mention that they hope to increase this number in the future. And secondly, this feature sadly doesn't seem to be available for Quest 2. Either way, I can't wait to see some of the crazy worlds that people create with this. But we also had some other things that came with this update, and that is none other than new browser extensions. Because where beforehand we only had the extension for the PDF viewer, they now have added a bunch of popular VPNs and password managers, as well as some other nice applications. And while these might change depending on your region, on screen right now you can see the entire list of the available options that are there so far. But next to this software update, we also had some big hardware news regarding the potential Quest 4 VR headset from Meta. Because while Zuckerberg has already mentioned that the Quest 4 should not release before 2026, we did now get the reveal of TCL's new compact OLED panels that might end up in Meta's next VR headset. Because at the moment, almost all affordable headsets use LCD panels. And that goes for your Quest 3 and Quest 3S as well. And while there are some premium devices, such as the Apple Vision Pro and the previously mentioned Samsung Galaxy XR, that do use micro OLED panels instead, they often come at 4 times the price of that of Quest 3, with the only main exception here being the PlayStation VR 2, since this one does run OLED panels, but with the trade-off of using the older Fresnel lenses. And that is why these new TCL displays can have such a big impact on VR, because not only do they have nearly twice the pixel density of that of the PlayStation VR 2, its small size also makes it ideal for being used with pancake lenses. So hopefully, the next Meta Quest 4 will rock OLED panels instead of LCD ones. But Meta's news didn't stop there, because they also announced some big deals regarding the Black Friday sales, as well as the upcoming holiday season. So for example, the base Quest 3S now got a reduction of $50, while also adding in another $30 of free store credit that you can spend however you want. Just keep in mind though, that besides the store credit, most of these reductions are for a limited time only. So if you are still thinking of getting a Quest headset, then I will leave the special link that you need for this down in the description below. But moving on, we also had some other big VR hardware news, because none other than Valve finally revealed their Steam Frame VR headset that is releasing in early 2026. And surprisingly though, this is actually a standalone VR headset similar to that of Quest 3, but then with its main focus on playing PC VR games. And thanks to its built-in compatibility layer, as well as it running the SteamOS operating system, it will also make it possible to play your flat-screen games in here, or even do a bunch of cool things like emulation. But right after Valve's reveal, it turned out that they won't be the only one anymore with a full open ecosystem. Because out of nowhere, Pimax, who are also known for their high-end PC VR headsets, announced their so-called Crystal SuperOpen initiative. And this means that users and developers will now get complete access to all the platform's SDKs, as well as the 3D models of the headsets for third-party development. Now, of course, just like with the Quest 3S, the Pimax headsets will also have some Black Friday deals going on. And on top of that, there's also the PC VR upgrade program if you're thinking of switching from, for example, your Quest to one of their headsets. Either way, like always, I'll leave all the important information that you might want to read up to down below. But we also got some insane VR game news that you don't want to miss. However, before we get into that, let's first have a quick word from the company that made this video possible. Because none other than Cat VR, who are known for creating VR treadmills that look like they come straight out of Ready Player One, are once again taking virtual reality to the next level. Because while we are normally limited by the boundary system inside our VR experiences, it is Cat VR that has created these VR treadmills that let you run and jump without any limitation. And since their most recent version, which is known as the C2 Plus Enhanced, is compatible with every VR headset that you can think of, it is also often considered as the dream upgrade for any VR user. And they even go so far that it has things like haptic feedback built into it, as well as a vehicle hub, which will make it feel even more realistic when you're racing on a track or flying through the sky. And as a cherry on top, you can also use the code VRelity for a whopping $130 off on your entire purchase. So for those who are interested, I'll leave a link in the description below. And that gets us to the VR game news, which also directly starts off with the surprise release of none other than Vampire Survivors VR. And in here, just like with its flat screen version, you will choose a character that is based on stats like damage and armor, before you're gonna let them loose in this voxel environment with waves upon waves of enemies to take down. And while the graphics on screen might not look like anything to write home about, anyone who has played the original will directly get hooked in just the first couple of seconds. But next up, we saw another massive release, which was none other than Deadpool VR. And not only was this one of the most long-awaited titles for the Quest headsets, it is also the very first time that you can officially play this anti-hero in virtual reality. Now, next to its eye-popping cel-shaded graphics, you can also expect a bunch of punchlines and some intense combat from the very first second till the last minute. Now, the only downside though is that the game does come in at a total of $50. But next up, we have Crystal Conquest. And this is a completely free-to-play MOBA that is similar to something like League of Legends, but then in VR. And in here, you'll be battling it out in 3v3 matches, while you're also using your unique elemental skills depending on the class that you picked. Now of course, next to fighting just your enemies, you will also have to brawl your basic minions and have jungles to clear, with the ultimate goal of winning your enemy's base. And besides that, you can either play it solo or co-op, but with the additional option to also switch the 3v3 mode to just straight up duels. Now do keep in mind that at the moment, you can already play this for free on SideQuest, with a full meta store and Steam release happening as we speak. And next up, we got a first look at the upcoming Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Empire City. And while the gameplay so far, as well as the beautiful cel-shaded graphics, do look very promising, we will have to wait a bit longer for this one, since it releases in 2026 for both Meta and Steam. But a big VR game that you can play right now is none other than Battlemarked, which is in collaboration of Demio and Dungeons & Dragons. And yes, this means we finally got an official D&D game to work on the MetaQuest headsets. And if you already enjoyed the base Demio itself, then this one will really take that experience to another level. Because instead of just randomly generated dungeons, in Battlemarked, you'll be playing with your own characters through an entire D&D experience from start to finish. And best of all, you can also play this with your friends, no matter where they are. Since next to Quest, this game will also be released for PlayStation and Steam. But that is not all, because now that the Quest 3 is more than 2 years old, you probably want to know if it is still worth it and what the future for it looks like. So click on the video that you see on screen right now to make sure you don't miss out on that. And of course, stay awesome.